Lakeland for a year, and then we had moved to Claremont back in, I think, '04. No, I take that back, '05. In that time frame, I moved down here from New Jersey pregnant with my third child, my son. Had him not soon after I was pregnant with my fourth child. Because my husband and his friend were building a business, it meant many, many hours away. And that was a heavy burden on somebody. And I had so many little kids, and being pregnant and not having any family, and the dynamics, we were just falling apart. You know, we would scream over $1.99 toothbrushes and stuff like that because it was just so much stress. I remember him coming home and asking me, because he was angry that I didn't come up to see the sign being hung on the building. I just couldn't do it. I was just like, I'm done. I'm so tired of this. I just want to go home. I just want to just go home and have help. And I know he's trying to build this business and all these conflicting emotions. And he came home and he was so angry that I was being quite selfish that night and didn't come up. And he asked me if I ever lied about anything. And I knew the moment that I decided not to tell him all those years ago about the affair, that it would come out and that he needed to know. I wasn't happy with the time frame, but I just knew as God was slowly beginning to work in me that he needed to know. And I remember my reply was, some things are better off left unsaid.
That opened up a can of worms, didn't it?
Sure it did.
Yeah. And he said, I want to know, because he always felt within our marriage a wall. There was always a boundary he could never get past with me, and he hated that. And really, it just stemmed from being raped and have that moment of absolute helplessness and not being in control, and somebody just taking what is not rightfully theirs. I mean, he just did that. He just took from me something that I did not freely give.
Many years.
Yeah.
He took from you.
Yeah. And it was only in a matter of seconds. I mean,
Yeah.
It was so fast, but the damage had been done. And my thought was, back then, I will never let anybody get that close to me, because I could only imagine if I gave somebody my full heart and every access to me, the damage that they could possibly do. That would destroy me beyond the rape. That could really, like I said, destroy me. And he always felt the barrier. He always pushed, why is this wall here? And he sensed there may have been an affair. He wanted to know, and I just, no. I wasn't sure about his faithfulness to me. There was always doubts, and that night I just started crying and said I had an affair. And I just broke down in the middle of my kitchen floor, crying, thinking, oh God, please don't let him hit me. Not that he was abusive in that way, but in my mind, I deserved that. I deserved to be hit for what I had done, and I just went through every scenario because I carried all this guilt and shame, but I masked it for a while. But now it was to the surface. It was there, and now it's out and it's exposed, and how do you handle that? But he didn't. He came over, and he just held me, and I just cried, and I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then I had such relief because he didn't start screaming at me, and he didn't hit me. He just held me while I broke. The next day, however, my words, I think, sunk in, and he realized what I had done, and then the anger hit. I think maybe it was shock for him, or just seeing me break, I don't know, and knowing that there was total vulnerability for the first time. And that's when it got really bad. The fighting was pretty bad, the name calling. And I just know it came from somebody that was really hurt in the betrayal of it. I understand that. But I didn't deserve to be called the things I was called over and over again for years. And I figured, you know what? It's done. I said it. Now he's going to leave, and I deserve that. That's really ultimately what I deserve. I don't deserve to be married to this man after what I've done. He said that he was going to stay in the marriage. We were never to discuss it. And no, we were not going to get therapy for it. It was that thing that had to be brushed under the carpet. But anything that we fought over or about afterwards, that was the trump card. Mm-hmm. That's what came out to neutralize Jessica.
The ace in the hole.
Right,
yep.
That was the wrong thing to do, sweep it.
Yep. Had we confronted it head on, we both would have gotten a tremendous amount of healing. Mm-hmm. I had already had my 4th child by this time. We were still... I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. You know, like waiting for that shoe to fall and what's going to happen now. Is he going to leave? Is he going to stay? Am I going to hear what a horrible person I am? And then the enemy would just keep pouring into me the condemnation. Over and over, I would hear these lies. And he used my husband at the time to really mentally wipe me out. As you can imagine, because of the depression I suffered pretty much my entire life, that would come and cycle back through. I got to the point, my 4th child, my daughter, was, I think she was under a year. And I remember I'd just gotten off the phone with him, and he was just saying some really horrible things. And I walked over to my kitchen sink, and all my kids were in there, in the house, in the living room. I opened the cabinet, and I took out the aspirin, and I poured it, palmed it, started trying to shove as many pills down my throat as I could. And as I was trying to force them down, there was a presence, and I felt it pushing my hand away. I was literally in a battle to get them down my throat. I got what I thought was, I don't know. I got what I tried. I got as much as I could down. And I threw my hands in the air, and I said, God, if I live, I live. If I die, I die. I can't do this anymore. And I heard very clearly and very loudly, it's not about you and your husband, but you need to be there for those kids. And I said, well, God, problem is I just took this, and I know how it works. You go to the ER, they're going to pump my stomach, they're going to, then it's all going to come out. This is going to be like out in the open. And fear gripped me, and I didn't know what to do. And back in the day, they used to tell us, and I'm sure you know this, always carry the Ipecac, if your children swallow something, this will make them vomit it. Never carried it, never had it. One day randomly threw it in my basket because I happened to see it as I was walking down the aisle. Took that, started vomiting it up. He came home, just looked at me in disgust. I don't even think we had any words at that point. I did not tell him what I had done. I hid that too. I had a lot of fear. 2 weeks, I was still throwing up. Because I worked in a lab, I could check my levels, and I knew my liver enzymes were a little messed up from the amount of aspirin, but nothing fatal, nothing. But I kept throwing up. And that's when I did a pregnancy test. And I was pregnant with my 5th child. And the realization hit me in that moment of weakness, in that moment of despair. I was willing to take my life, but I would have taken my unborn child's life too. Mm-hmm. But God is so good, because even then, he was intervening in my life. And I had like little moments of that where I saw, and it was amazing.
They are amazing, aren't they?
But because of my guilt and shame, I wouldn't reach out because I was so dirty. And how could he love me if I'm this dirty?
Well, the devil had you convinced of that, too, because condemnation's his best weapon. It's all he's got.
Oh, yeah. He had me really believing that I wasn't worth anything. And then using my husband to hammer that thought home over and over again was not helping the situation. In November 2007, my husband left. He wanted a divorce. That shattered my world. I really wasn't sure how to cope with that. It was the ultimate rejection on top of all the others that I had felt over the years. And then this was the point of just brokenness for me. The fighting was bad. As I said, we'd argue and it would just be the screaming matches and throw out the trump card. I got tired of being called names. I would lash out, then I started to lash out physically at him because I just was tired. It was like being a kick dog over and over again, and then finally it bites, you know.
And depression eventually turns to anger.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
You break out of that shell and then come out swinging.
Yeah, exactly. I remember hitting my knees in my bedroom, sobbing, going, God, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. Help me. And he spoke the word believe. It was the very first word I heard, believe. And I got up and I said, okay, I don't know what that means. I don't know. Believe in you, believe in me, believe what? And as the brokenness continued to mount, and I realized now, looking back, I was actually coming to the end of myself, to where I realized there was one of two ways this was going to go. Either I was going to call out to him, or I was going to end up dying. He kept leading me. The next thing he led me to, and I didn't read the Bible, we started going to church at Mosaic, and that's where the word became alive to me. The way Renaud preaches it, and he made me understand how it applies now. But I never opened the Bible. I mean, in between church services. I mean, I would go and I'd look forward to the next one and be like, okay, what am I going to learn? But I never really delved into God or his word. But God was so good. He gave me Matthew chapter 5, the Beatitudes. And we had a lady that came to Mosaic from real life. And they used to do the Celebrate Recovery program. They were like leaders of it.
We know it well.
Yeah, very familiar with it.
And it's based on
Both graduates.
the Beatitudes. So that led me over to Celebrate Recovery. And I started going to their large group and then their small group. I was in counseling. We tried marriage counseling through Wellspring. And then it turned into individual counseling because I needed to work on some things, but I was unwilling to relinquish my marriage. In my mind, I had to heal that first and then me second. I had to get this right and then me. And everybody kept telling me, no, you're doing it backwards. No, I'm a wife first. I'm a wife first. And I had this mindset, and it was just locked, and it wouldn't sway. I couldn't sway it. I was in counseling with the counselors at Mosaic. I was in counseling with Wellspring, and I was at Celebrate Recovery, and I was at church a couple days a week. So in those moments, I could cope. I really could cope. In those moments, it was like, okay, victory. And then I'd walk out the door and I might be good for an hour or two, and then life would smack me again, and I couldn't cope. And I was end up crying or angry, and that's all my kids saw. Just brokenness. At the time, my youngest was about 2. I had been steadily crying out to God to do something. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take, we're working on it, we're not working on it, we're working on it, we're not. It was making me crazy. And I remember sinking to my knees in my bedroom, screaming, I want out, God. I want out. I don't want this marriage. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't. I cannot do this. I can't do it anymore. It hurts. I want out. Screaming for him to release me. And he just told me to wait. Okay, I'll wait.
I know those words well.
Yes, you do.
Going back to my youngest son, who's very busy. He's like 10 kids in one. I came home one afternoon, and God used this moment to bring me to my